Paris, October 16th, 1793. A cart creaks over wet cobblestones. No music, only silence and spit. Inside sits a 37-year-old woman. Her hair is cut, her hands are bound, her face is pale as a canvas. No jewels, no crown. She's no longer a queen. She's nothing. But her eyes are wide open, and she walks to her death with a dignity that even her enemies could not explain. 40,000 voices pack the Place de la Révolution. Many don't see her as a person, but as a symbol of luxury, of inequality, of contempt. They've called her a witch, a lustful foreigner, a traitor, and worst of all, an incestuous mother. The executioner, Sanson, tells her to climb the scaffold. She missteps and treads on his foot. "Pardon me, sir, I didn't do it on purpose." Those are her final words, and no one remembers that she didn't choose any of this. Long before the gowns, scandals, and the cake she never told anyone to eat, there was a girl. She was 14. Her name was Marie Antoinette Josepha Johanna of Habsburg-Lorraine, daughter of emperors, 12th among 15 siblings. She was sent to France like a diplomatic letter, with no return. Her mother didn't hug her goodbye. She sent instructions. Don't talk too much. Don't laugh too loud. Don't be Austrian. Be a queen. That's how the tragedy began. A tragedy not just of excess, though there was that too, but of silence, abandonment, and masks. And this is not the Marie Antoinette they told you about in school. Not the queen obsessed with dresses. Not the frivolous woman dancing while the people starved. Today, we tell you the other story. The one that began before she was a queen, before she was even a woman. Just a girl who could never return home. She was born in the heart of the Viennese court, in the Hofburg Palace, surrounded by siblings, tutors, and music. The youngest daughter of Europe's most powerful woman, Maria Theresa of Austria. But she wasn't raised for love or liberty. She was trained to obey, to represent, to marry well. Politics was her mother's game, and the children were her pieces. To the Empress, Maria Antoinette was nothing more than the future Dauphine of France. At 14, she was chosen to seal a historic alliance with the Bourbons. France had been Austria's enemy for centuries, but the balance of Europe now demanded peace. A marriage would symbolize unity, and Maria Antoinette, with no voice or vote, was sacrificed on the altar of diplomacy. The journey to France wasn't a trip. It was a ritual of uprooting. At the border, she was forced to strip completely. Every garment, every jewel, every Austrian item was removed. Symbolically, she ceased to be a daughter of Austria, to be reborn as a French princess. And like any birth, there was pain. Once she crossed the border, she was alone. No one spoke her language. No one truly smiled. The Versailles court, masters at spotting weakness, sensed the freshness of childhood in her and devoured it with mockery wrapped in polite smiles. Louis Auguste, the Dauphin, wasn't any better. He was 15, clumsy, silent, obsessed with locks and maps. There was no passion, barely any eye contact. The marriage wasn't consummated for 7 years. In the meantime, Maria Antoinette became a European joke. The sterile queen, they called her. The cold foreigner. No friends, no guidance, no freedom. It was during those years that her infamous image began to take shape. The frivolous queen. But that image wasn't born from her. It was born from an environment that needed her to fail. And she, young and inexperienced, fell into many traps. But let's not forget, she was just a girl, ordered to be queen, in a country that never truly wanted her. Versailles wasn't a court. It was a stage, and everyone in it, actors trained in the art of appearances, intrigue, and social cruelty. Marie Antoinette didn't speak French well. Her spelling was poor. Her Austrian accent stood out, where every gesture was judged and every word could be a sentence. She was an easy target, and her husband's silence didn't help. Louis Auguste barely looked at her, avoided her touch. Easier to fix a lock than look his wife in the eyes. For 7 years, their marriage went unconsummated, and that absence of intimacy became scandal. The court whispered. Ambassadors reported, pamphlets mocked, the queen can't even bed her husband. She was humiliated, not only by the aristocracy, but by the international public. And how did she respond? By escaping into fashion, music, small rebellions. She remade her image, broke rules, chose dangerous friends. Every dress she wore, every party she hosted, every bold gesture was taken as a personal insult to the people. Her mock village at the Petit Trianon was seen as a cruel joke. Her love for theater as mindless vanity. But in truth, she was gasping for air. Versailles was a cage, one where all eyes watched, judged, and never forgave. In a court where silence could roar louder than shouts, Marie Antoinette learned it wasn't enough to be queen, she had to play a role. And often, she failed at the script others wrote for her. Under pressure, scrutiny, and disdain, she found a place to breathe. The Petit Trianon, a small palace hidden in Versailles gardens. There, court rules didn't apply. No humiliating rituals marked her steps. There, she could play at being herself, or at least imagine what that meant. She built a world of her own. A fake rustic village with mills, animals, and country cottages. She dressed as a shepherdess, reenacting scenes from romantic novels beloved by the elite. She played instruments, read poetry, grew flowers, and surrounded herself with close friends. In that space, she laughed without permission. To her, it was freedom. To the people, it was provocation. The queen played peasant while real peasants starved. That was the rumor. And the hostile press pounced. Obscene cartoons, vulgar pamphlets, accusations of waste, lesbianism, immorality, fiction blurred with fury. Then came the diamond necklace affair, the final blow. A scam by the Countess de la Motte tricked a cardinal into thinking the queen wanted an absurdly expensive necklace. Fake letters. A look-alike impersonating Marie Antoinette in the garden. The cardinal believed it all and bought the diamonds in her name. Then, the necklace vanished. When scandal erupted, she was innocent. But it didn't matter. The cardinal was arrested. There was a public trial. The people didn't care for evidence. They had already chosen their villain. The queen had nothing to do with it. But the damage stuck. While we starve, the queen plays with diamonds. That was the headline. She became the foreign spendthrift. The witch of Versailles, who loved gems more than justice. But no one saw the truth. The Trianon wasn't vanity, it was emotional refuge. The village wasn't mockery, it was escape. In a world where she couldn't be queen her way, she wasn't allowed to be woman, friend, or mother without judgment. And so, while the revolution burned outside, another kind of rebellion grew inside the Trianon. A woman trying to be free in a world that didn't see queens as human. Among the dresses, the whispers, and the endless court rituals, something changed Marie Antoinette more than any scandal. Becoming a mother. Her first child, Marie-Thérèse, was born in 1778. Years of mocking ended. The barren queen had given birth. But motherhood didn't bring triumph. It brought vulnerability. Her letters became tender, sincere, less political, more personal. When Louis Joseph was born in 1781, she wept with joy. The foreign girl had given France an heir. But joy was brief. The boy developed spinal tuberculosis. Slowly, painfully, he faded away. She stayed with him, not as queen, but as mother. She read to him, held his hands, sang to him each night. But nothing helped. In 1789, as revolution flared, he died at just 7 years old. This was her first true mourning, not for a crown, but for a child she couldn't save. Her tears stayed private, but they never stopped. And it wasn't her only heartbreak. In 1787, baby Sophie had died too, just months old. Too young for the history books, but not too young to scar her mother's soul. Marie Antoinette withdrew further. She dressed in black, wrote fewer letters, prayed more. Her words to close friends showed a woman broken. She worried more about her children's hearts than about the crown. Even her enemies admitted she was a devoted mother, because beneath the public mask and the hate was a woman still trying to love. She was closest to her youngest, Louis Charles. But when revolutionaries seized power, they tore him away, isolated him, lied to him, broke him down day by day. They made him accuse her, his own mother, of incest. That was the final blow. But Marie Antoinette didn't scream, didn't beg. She simply said, "I appeal to all mothers." And in that moment, even the women in the crowd who hated her looked away. She was no longer a queen, just a mother who had lost everything. The French Revolution didn't arrive suddenly. It was a slow storm, brewing in pamphlets, speeches, and hunger. But when it exploded, it spared no one. In 1789, the people stormed the Bastille. The symbol fell, but the throne still stood, barely. Marie Antoinette knew the danger. She fought in her own way, not with weapons, but with letters, pleas, secret alliances. But it was already too late. Louis XVI was arrested with her and their children. They were moved to the Tuileries, no longer royals, now prisoners with crowns. And soon, not even that, they tried to escape. The flight to Versailles was a disaster. They were caught, recognized, returned. That night, the people's trust shattered forever. They would never again be seen as sovereigns, only as traitors. In 1792, the monarchy was abolished. The following year, Louis XVI was executed. Marie Antoinette didn't cry in public, but something inside her died. Now alone, no husband, no power, no allies, Marie Antoinette was imprisoned in the Conciergerie, a dark, damp cell. There she was no longer queen. She was prisoner number 280. The revolutionaries watched her constantly. No letters, no visits, no contact with her surviving children. Her son Louis Charles, just 9, was taken, brainwashed, tormented, forced to accuse her of unspeakable acts. And still, she did not break. At her trial, she denied each charge with calm dignity. When accused of incest, she said only, "Even nature itself refuses to answer such a charge. I appeal to all mothers here." Silence followed. Even the women of the tribunal lowered their eyes. For a moment, they saw her, not as a queen, but as a mother. But it was too late. She was sentenced to die, not for her crimes, but for what she symbolized. The girl once sent to France as a gift of peace was now condemned by a nation in flames. On October 16th at 4 a.m., she was awakened. No letters, no farewells. Her hair was cut, her hands bound. She was dressed in a plain white blouse. No longer a queen, only a woman walking to her death. She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't stumble. She walked with the dignity so often denied to her in life. They say her face was pale, but calm. That when she stepped on the executioner's foot, she apologized. She climbed the scaffold unaided, asked for no mercy, waited for the end. And when the blade fell, it wasn't just a woman who died. A world died with her. The old regime fell that day, but her shadow lingered in Europe's nightmares for decades. Her name became a warning, a symbol of arrogance. But over time, history looked closer. They found the woman behind the legend, the mother, the young girl trapped, the foreigner sacrificed. Marie Antoinette wasn't innocent, but she wasn't the monster either. She was human. And like so many women in history, she was judged not for what she did, but for what she represented. Maybe now we can stop seeing her as a queen and begin remembering her as what she truly was. A girl sent to die for a world's mistakes. Her son, Louis Charles, died 2 years later, alone, sick, abandoned. He was just 10 years old. Her daughter, Marie Therese, the only one to survive, spent decades restoring her mother's name. She never spoke of her trauma, and she was never the same. For generations, Marie Antoinette was a cautionary tale, a queen who failed. But time rewrote her. Historians, novelists, filmmakers began to see past the dresses and scandals. Now her face appears in books, films, museums, not as a symbol of decadence, but of a woman trapped in a century that punished difference. Sometimes history doesn't need heroes, it needs justice. And Marie Antoinette's legacy, like so many silenced women, deserves to be remembered truthfully. If this story moved you, don't let it fade. Subscribe, share this video, help rescue the voices history tried to erase. Your support keeps this project alive and makes space for a truer, more human story. Thank you for looking with different eyes. See you in the next episode.